Welcome back to Caffeine Confessionals. My name is Allan. We are here today to talk about the Challenge All-Stars 5 Rivals, Episode 3. I'm joined by my lovely co-host. We have the Southern Luke Muncie,
What's up, guys?
the Vermontian Zoe Trimboli.
Hi, everyone.
Last week's episode of the Challenge Rivals ended with an explosive fight between KellyAnne and Sylvia. There were a lot of really mean things said about people online. It's been a crazy week in the challenge world. Were we going to jump right back into Sylvia and KellyAnne and more conversations about kids versus dogs? No. Just completely acting like it almost didn't happen, but not that it didn't happen either. Just, I guess that's the way they're editing the season now.
I'm not opposed. I think the way it was edited helped break up the stuff and also gave us something to look forward to as the episode progressed. And we'll see again. We'll talk about it later. They end the episode with more drama. It's a nice cliffhanger that's not an actual cliffhanger. So I like it.
Yeah, and they did resolve it in the episode. Like, it did come back around eventually. So it works for me. If you introduce this big fight and then you never talk about it again, that's a problem. But I thought the episode was great.
Me too.
Zoe gives it a great. Okay, hell yeah. I liked it too. But great, hell yeah.
Allan does not agree.
I enjoyed the episode. I was just like, good. That was I was more on the level of good, but like, hell yeah, we disagree.
Maybe I just have adjectives than you.
Well, we got to talk about our favorite person to start off, Aneesa. Before we get into Aneesa, though, let's set the stage. There is people working out in the challenge house like they do. It feels like we get a lot of scenes these days of people just working out and running around the house on these seasons. But Frank and Nicole are using just like weights throughout the house, and they're putting in a very impressive workout. Sam sees them working out and goes like, wow, that's really impressive. And it wasn't through like obviously like Sam does not come in the season in the best shape. To me, it didn't even sound like jealousy. It more sounded like just being impressed by what these two people are putting in.
Yeah, and I think Sam has been open about that. Like, there's been no like, I trained really hard for this. I think for Sam and a lot of people who've come back to All Stars, this is a reunion of sorts. It is a way to make money because we've seen some finals be crapshoots. And like the physical state Sam was in when production gave her that call, I'm sure would not have been enough time to get in like uber super great shape. So like, why not go have the experience? I think she's not putting on any facade that like she should be seen as this like really elite competitor.
And I also think like accepting the invite back to the season, you don't necessarily know what the theme is. And so maybe Sam was thinking, I'd be happy to go do that and try that again, but not knowing that she would be tied to a partner. And I think maybe she would have felt differently if she had known that her performance could impact someone else. Maybe not. And it is what it is either way. But yeah, I think that I agree, Allan. She was just kind of watching in awe, like, look at these two machines go at it out there, because they really, I mean, Nicole is many terrible things, but she is also very fit.
Yeah, and this is where I feel very mixed about Aneesa, because when Sam says this, Aneesa is very quick to chime in. Well, everyone's different. And Aneesa, who like, I do think body positive, like Aneesa and Sam, they talk about body positivity and stuff like that and representation on the show, which I do think it's like important that, because not everyone on the show has the same body. But Aneesa is always quick to say stuff like that rather than just be like, yeah, what they're doing is an inspiration and impressive. Like, you could just give them props. And that's where I felt like when Sam was talking, she was just more inspired and impressed. And Aneesa was like, well, you don't have to like compare yourself to them. And I thought Sam was comparing herself in kind of a healthy way of like, man, maybe I should, start to work hard like them, or even if not, like just give them their credit.
Completely. And I know that we're hard on Aneesa, but like, she does have a good social game. Like, regardless if we aren't fans of it, like, she's the person playing the game. She has a good social game. She made a final recently, flopped, but like, she has the capability of making it to a final. And I won't have a double standard here. Aneesa does not need to train super hard before All Stars because she's seen what some of the finals have been. Some have been very difficult, but the last really wasn't. But here's where I do have an issue. you're right. I do think that Sam was purely just admiring, like, these people are still beasts, like this is their life. Aneesa's reaction was to say, oh, I train very hard before every single season that I do, but once I get into the house, I do nothing and just like kind of coast on the friendship game. Two things can happen at once, and that doesn't make sense. Athletes do not prepare for an event, like the main event, and 6 weeks from the final event, in this case, it's the final, maybe 4 weeks because it's All-Stars, you just outright stop. I'm fine with her saying, like, I do what I can. I know that she's had injuries before that have impeded her from working out. I know, too, that she has said that when she got off antidepressants, like, there was a rapid weight gain. And listen, I don't even see those as excuses. Those are real things that, like, changed how Aneesa was as a person, let alone just being an adult. Like, adults should not be stick skinny, or they can be, but, like, it's not that common. But for her to then, like, put up that guard, like, well, I do what they do too, but once I get here, I stop. If that's true, because I have no way to verify, that would be insane. I'm trying to not be so crucial on her or critical on her, but it's things like this where I'm like, just be you.
It's not true. She's not training that intensely for extended periods of time because, and this is where she said athletes come in all shapes and sizes, and I agree. I think fit people come in all shapes and sizes. I think there's people that can run long distances and you would never expect it by taking a look at them. The difference is Aneesa is a representation of a different body type, and I think that's great on reality TV. But Aneesa also has shown that she can't run a mile many, many times. So I can say that it's not cool to body shame Aneesa or Sam and criticize solely their body, but you can criticize their performance, or you can point out the unlikely scenario in which they could win because of the lack of effort when it comes to working out. And that's not me saying anything bad about their body. That's just saying the likelihood of them winning is slim to none because they're not putting in the same amount of effort as these other people. My problem with Aneesa is just like she's always just been so delusional and lies to herself about where she's at. And I think we said this over and over and over again, but if she just were to own her fitness or lack thereof exactly as it is and just say, these are my strengths and I'm hoping for like something to go in my way, for some luck, for me to stumble upon some luck in the final, or someone else to have some bad luck, that needs to happen for me to be able to win because I am good at this and this and this.
I just think Aneesa has also just a high level of ego where she truly believes that she's like, well, if I was just also in slightly better shape, I would be winning everything. And it's like, no, you'd probably be in much better shape than you are right now. And it's not even like, this dates back all the way to the duel. Because like Aneesa has done interviews where she said, yeah, if I had made it to the final of the duel, I would have beat Jody. It's like, no, you would not have beat Jody. Her elimination last season with Jenny, she's like, well, yeah, Jenny's not actually a runner. You know, when she's doing the interviews, like, I'm just as good of an athlete, if not better than her, like type stuff. And I don't think Aneesa's a bad athlete, but it's this thing where she's talking about body positivity and stuff like that, but she's always quick to also knock people down. And I think she's also someone who makes superficial comments about other people's bodies and appearance all the time too. Just like when you hear just interviews and her talk, I don't know. I just find her to be a hypocrite, and that's a big reason why I don't like her. At the same time, though, like the conversation about body positivity and the fact that she was able to comfort Sam and be nice to her, I do like that at the same time. So, yeah, I felt very mixed watching it all.
And dare I say, and this is giving Aneesa a lot of credit, and I will, I don't even think that Aneesa's advocating for body positivity as much as body neutrality. That you don't have to look a certain way to win this show. And I mean, I'll say this because I don't think people will jump me for making this comparison. CT has come on the show extremely out of shape before. Now he is still lifting, but like I think World of Worlds 2, he was in horrible shape and he still won. But you go for it.
Well, I just also think it's different for men, frankly.
For sure. Like, and that's why I can even make that comparison, because
there are men who can be fairly out of shape, but can still like snap their fingers and lock into a certain level of athletic performance, even if they're out of shape. And with certain equalizers that happen in finals, like you would have to be Big Easy to not win.
Zoe's favorite challenger of all time.
Ooh.
Let's move on because I like
Yeah.
here
this
is
all
my
day.
issue though. Here's my issue, and you're right because I just said let's move on, but I've got to say it. I feel like I always have this weird gut thing for the past like several seasons talking about this because we've said many times Aneesa's not even like an obese woman. She's a normal woman. But it really sucks to have this conversation every single season. And it's not because we're drawing attention to Aneesa or like the state of her physicality, but she is. And it's becoming a conversation because of that. And if that's your only storyline, then my goodness, like, what are we doing? Now, we said last week, and I'll say it again, Aneesa looks like she's been killing it in the gym and on her runs recently. And I'll even advocate that, again, like I said last week, that I'd like to see her do something that I would never expect because I would champion her so hard. But again, we're talking about the context of this and it is what it is.
Well, I want to really quickly. I think part of the reason is that it's always a conversation season after season is because she doesn't own it, because she's hypocritical, because she lies to herself. Like if she ever just once took the conversation away by acknowledging her shortcomings, we wouldn't be talking about it. We'd just be like, good for her. That's some self-awareness. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. Now, actually moving on. Took us 12 minutes. What we got here? Daily challenge. Let's talk about this daily challenge. It's basically a cardio-based daily challenge where the teams are going to be carrying balls through a pit, through an obstacle course. Then they had to go through a cargo net. I honestly was not fully sure on the rules of like, because in the rules they said like based on how many balls you can carry from one side to the other. And I'm like, oh, so you can't drop the balls at any point, but then people were putting the balls on the ground. So I wasn't really sure what the full rules of the daily challenge were, but you had to transport 10 from one side all the way to the end. And then you had to solve a puzzle at the end.
Yeah. And Allan's footnote on our notes before this is what's the point? And I know we're going to get into that specifically later, but like, what was the point of even the rules? Because I, like you, thought, oh, they can't let the ball touch the ground. But then we saw them being thrown to the ground, picked up off the ground afterwards. And maybe it's just a lack of me not paying too close of attention, but it's a fine daily. And I do think this is more of an equalized one as compared to the one last week when you take into account fear and height and things like that. But
I think my theory is, guys, that they are strict about these rules in the beginning of a daily challenge, but when it starts to wear on, production cares less. I actually think that it's that simple. Because I think, especially, I'm guessing too, once some people have established such a lead, that they also don't care about the people who are just like trying to finish a certain portion.
Yeah.
That makes absolute sense, Zoe. Now, in our footnotes, I put, why should we even care? And it's not even a fact if I hated the daily challenge. It's just the problems we had last week where there is no last place. So even these teams who are struggling, I'm like, oh man, they're struggling. I'm judging them a bit, but also I'm also thinking to myself, like, well, just quit. Who cares? Like, who really cares? And then these teams in the middle, I'm like, all right, you're just there, and then you got these male teams who are just dominating, and the male female teams who are just clearly at the top, and it's hard for these dual female teams to even really compete with them, even when they're doing well.
Wouldn't it have been just a better daily challenge to have them say, like, get 10, 15, 20 balls and put it into like a designated zone at the beginning of the course and just go through once, and then it's just like a race? Because it became more about like the cardio and the endurance of taking multiple trips to get these balls from point A to point B. But if people knew they only had to take that one trip, I think it would have been a lot more interesting and closer, and it could have been anybody's game.
Yeah, and I can't remember the word Zoe has used a lot before, but I'm going to say that I'm going to be flippant here for a second and how I feel about this. Because last week I was like, thank goodness there's not a last place because some of these people can't compete at the same caliber. But this is kind of a double-edged sword because it does incentivize people to say, I'm going to play the middle because I don't want to make that big call at the end. And also my partner sucks, so like there's no use. but then that makes for the politics to be boring. Like if you're going to make Adam and Steve compete for like first place every single time and you're not going to try to beat them, like I kind of hate it. We get enough of the social game after the daily, thanks to, we'll talk about later, another person. But I'm going to go back on what I said last week. It does suck not having a last place or even a penalty for not finishing.
Or even, you know what? I just came up with this idea right now. Bring back the relic from War of the Worlds 1. And like Adam and Steve won the elimination. They're safe next week. You can't vote them in again.
Yeah, it makes people at least play a little bit more of an interesting game.
Yeah.
I'm always pro last place going in, personally. I mean, I could maybe feel a little differently this season because the talent pool or like the depth of competitors it's just such a wide variety of what we got here. So I think you could make an argument that this season it would trim the fat really quickly.
Now I will say TJ or production probably like cursed them out before this daily challenge because the effort across the board for the whole daily challenge was much higher than last week, and I feel like everyone actually did put in a good effort, even though there was no last place. Like even the teams who did poorly, I still feel like they were doing more than I expected.
Yeah, there was definitely effort there for most people. Some not though. Like,
all right, let's talk about the teams who struggles first then. All right, let's.
Yeah.
Who do you guys want to jump into?
I mean, I think the easy one to talk about first is Katie Veronica, who just were like, there's no fucking way we're winning. So you guys have fun. We're going to like trot through this course when TJ's not going to yell at us. They each carried a single ball.
I was genuinely stunned. They both got over through the net and got a whole lap in. You know what? Even though it was only 2 balls, I was expecting them to get 0. I was like, damn, who's going to help them up and top over that net? And they both just did it. Good for them.
what am I going to say here? Maybe nothing. I understand Veronica's legacy on the show completely. She's a 3-time champ. I don't care how the format got her there. She is. You can't take that away from her. And I understand that's probably why she's still cast, on top of her being a good personality on the show and like having these interpersonal relationships. And I can't forget that on All Stars 3, like she pretty much made the final had she not had that injury. But it's like, what are you doing here? Like, what? And she made the final last season, didn't she?
Yeah, she's like not. She can still do like she's not. There's a lot of stuff she cannot do, but there's still stuff that she can do. Like she's good at any mental comp and like trivia and stuff like that. And she's still pretty fearless when it comes to like a lot of the weird height stuff. You know what's funny too, because she's the one who's getting a lot more like comments about her appearance and stuff like that. And Katie looks great, but in terms of who's more ready to run a final, it's still Veronica over Katie.
Well, and may I just say this about Veronica? You know what? You can come into a season like this, maybe not in your tip-top shape because you're a 3-time champ. You're not still vying for the viewers to look at you as something that you're not. She is a champ. Can't take that away.
She also owns where she's at currently. She doesn't like pretend to be better than she is.
Yeah.
And she still she knows how to play the game, even to this day. Like she's still like even under 830 made moves in that game that actually took out took out strong players.
Well, and even the scripts of next week's episode, and we kind of see it in the scenes for next week's episode. You can see Veronica playing a political game, and in a scenario like this, like fall back on that strength.
Sucked in this daily, but
yeah,
glad she's here.
Well, with the way that stars can be really moved around in this game, I do wonder like they aren't going to be able to get a star, I assume, because they have to win an elimination now.
But I do feel like possibly you guys touched on this last week. I had to re-listen because I had forgotten last season of All Stars. But eventually a star team will go in, and they might be a team that you give the star to, not to put a target on, but hey, you've been a good ally, or hey, I do want to face you in the final. And if somebody else gets the chance to steal a star, they're probably not stealing it from them. So I actually do see an avenue for them to make the final.
It's a great point, Liv. It's a great point. Now, let's talk about someone we haven't talked about in a while, and that's Aneesa. And the reason she comes up is that we get to Ashley and Aneesa trying to get up the cargo net, and Aneesa is hesitant because the last time she was on a cargo net, she dislocated her shoulder on Spies, Lies, and Allies. And I'll actually give her credit for this one. I'd be afraid too. If my last experience with the cargo net was I dislocated my shoulder, I'd be scared too.
So that was my first thought, but like it was even a different structure of the cargo net. It's like it was a straight up wall, like there was an incline, like. And here's my thing. I'm glad that Darrell and Katie can own their fear of heights, and they make no qualms that he says you can call me this, you can call me that, and Katie says you can yell at me, but I'm not doing it. I don't necessarily think a cargo net is on the same level. I think it speaks to something else.
Yeah, a fear of cargo nets is stupid. I'm sorry. Like, and there is not an athlete in the world, heavy on the air quotes, that should be afraid of a cargo net. It's ridiculous. She's really good at getting attention. She's really good at getting camera time for all her bullshit, honestly. I just can't. I have nothing more nice to say.
I know, and I think I'm gonna like move on. Okay, so I will play devil's advocate for a second. And it's ridiculous completely. I don't think Ashley was truly that mad. I love Ashley. She's like, I don't know if you will find someone that loves Ashley more than me, and I'll put that out there. But I think that Ashley also is a smart woman and knows, like, if these are the cards I'm being dealt, Aneesa is, in Ashley's own words, an ass kisser. Like, we're probably going to be fine this round, but it is going to get to a point where it's like, okay, heights are a shortcoming, cargo nets are a shortcoming. Is swimming going to be a shortcoming? Is solving a puzzle going to be a shortcoming? And I fear that volcano is going to erupt soon.
I also think Ashley is recognizing that they're not winning, and Ashley knows she's on a TV show and intends to make good TV. And just by being authentically herself, which is so livid that she has Aneesa for a partner.
I also just think like daily challenges, like if you're like a sports fan, like they are your regular season games. They are your opportunity to build chemistry and like team building skills and find out what you're good at and what you're bad at. And if Aneesa just can't even like compete every, then you're not growing, you're not building anything. And so when you get to that final, you're just not gonna be able to compete with everyone else.
And I do think there's like some people, especially the athletes, the competitors, who enjoy this stuff and it's fun and they enjoy showing what they've got. And Ashley just can't do anything because of her partner. And that's really frustrating for someone who's a two-time champ.
Well, and I was just about to give Aneesa credit again because I'm trying so hard not to be so negative. Because please don't comment and say, y'all hate Aneesa. I already know I do. Like, don't remind me. But, and I don't hate her. Like I said, I want her to do well, but I hate this version of Aneesa. But I was about to say, like, this is disappointing because we've seen her do fairly well in other daily challenges in the past. But then I'm reminded that, like, even last season, season 40, she wouldn't even row the boat when she was with people. Like, it just seems like apathy almost. And listen, if I were in Aneesa's spot and they kept calling me and I kept getting on these free trips that come with a paycheck for being there, I would do it. But like, don't put on this guise to us as the viewers that like you have this deep-seated fear of cargo nets. And maybe she does. I need to just come on. Can we move on, Aneesa, please?
Yeah,
well, we're going to talk about her again later.
We have to talk about Sam now. And I will say this, like, up until I think the end of the daily challenge, I was proud of Sam, and Frank was proud of Sam because she was just giving her all. And I will say, like, it's the self-awareness factor that like Zoe was talking about, where Sam's like, look, I know it's not much for most people, but I'm proud that I was able to get up the slope by myself, and she got through the cargo net. Like, you know what? At least she's aware.
At least, because sorry, Zoe.
Well, I'm just gonna say, like, you guys mentioned this last week, that Frank quitting last week was stupid because it very much gave Sam permission to quit this week. And I was frustrated with Sam at the end because I'm like, just walk it. Like, no one's telling you have to run, you have to do this top speed, but like, don't just like tap out because it's gotten really hard. Do it at your own pace, whatever it is, and just don't quit. That's all.
And I think that this speaks to like just Sam as, I don't want to say as a person because that's not a fair assessment, but just like Sam as a competitor. I don't think Sam's a good competitor. I don't think the shape Sam came into the season mattered because although she was treated horribly on Battle of the Seasons 2, she's still a champ. I'll absolutely give her that. Like, what a good track record. But she was the worst person on that team. She really did not even have, like, no motivation techniques worked. The ones they used were horrible. I'll never say that they weren't. But I just don't think Sam is meant for competition.
I would argue Sam was one of the worst people on that season.
Yeah.
Sure. There are a lot of bad players on that season, but sure. I honestly, I don't. Maybe might have to make a list and be like, all right, just go through every single person.
Big Easy was there. That's true. Okay. Let's talk about the good, maybe.
What?
Can we talk about the good? So people don't comment.
Before we talk about the good, I do want to make a couple notes.
Yeah.
They're filming in the same place they filmed season 40, and what's crazy is that it's like the month later. We've hit the summer of whatever country they're in because it's much hotter than when they were there, to the point that like production literally brought out waters for the competitors mid-daily challenge because they're like, it's almost a testament to like Zoe's like, yeah, they changed the rules mid-daily challenge. Mid-daily challenge are like, okay, we need to bring out some waters before people get carted out on like.
Michelle.
Yeah.
And okay, now on to the good. Before we talk about the winners, I was intrigued by Dario and Ashley Kelsey's strategy where they just grabbed one ball each and like the biggest ball each, and we're like, we're gonna just put up the fastest pace first. We're gonna break everyone's spirit by being just so out in front of everyone else, even we have to take 3 laps. It was something different. It was not, the strategy did not work. But I like when someone tries something different.
The math wasn't mathing, just like it didn't last week.
If they had taken maybe 3 small balls the first trip and like did that, but like they just essentially added an extra trip for themselves.
Which I will say, like maybe when they changed the rules of like, hey, the ball can touch the ground now, they were probably the only team being like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's true. I can appreciate trying to like do something different. I just hate that they don't have the shared capacity to think it through completely.
They have one brain between the two of them. They're just beautiful idiots.
Mm-hmm.
And considering all the other teams that like just finished in like the middle of the pack, it's like, you know what? Those are the teams finished in the middle of the pack. They were doing the same strategy as the teams that won. Just, I like when people go outside the box a little bit. Now, other teams that actually did well came down to 2 teams, essentially. Well, really 1 team. Devin and Leroy were very much out in front of everyone else. They took 2 trips, and I think being a guy team very much helps because they just had a larger wingspan and could get up that net much quicker. And it also helped them that Adam and Steve, who didn't do poorly in this daily challenge, that Adam was dying.
100%.
I said it last week and I'll say it again. The male team dynamic is just bad. And here's the thing. I would say that Turbo and Nani are both in shape people, but even with that disparity in like the team makeup, they weren't super close to what was happening. And I'm not discrediting Leroy and Devin, but like it benefited them that they were an in shape male team.
What do you guys think of Devin shit talking Leroy and his confessionals?
I'm conflicted because I like some people who self-produce sometimes. Like this show would not be what it is if Johnny Bananas, who I don't like, did not self-produce. Like he has helped a lot of these storylines. He's helped a lot of these people get calls back. And I'll say that even as someone who doesn't like him. But like you and Leroy don't dislike one another that much. And I truly don't think you think that low of him. So again, I think it is for the TV, and I get it. It's a rival season. There's a reason Devin's been cast many times, except for that one little hiatus. But I just think it's weird. And I also, I always want to say this on here. I have to remember that I know too much about this show and keep up with it more than the average person. My friends who are just casual viewers will watch that and be like, "Oh, that's shady. I like that." Like, so take me out of the equation for a second. I'm the wrong audience, actually.
I love Leroy, but I also don't think what Devin is saying is completely wrong about Leroy either. Like there is a reason he's never won this show, and you go through like his seasons, like Leroy is a consistent second to fourth place finisher because of his own actions. Like there's not seasons he should have won because he never really takes out the big threat before the final, and he doesn't make those type of moves. And like I think Leroy's probably a greater athletic talent, and he is very much a greater athletic talent than Devin, but he's never played the game like Devin has, and that's why Devin's been able to accomplish a win. As much as some people on Twitter and stuff hate him, like Devin has made all the right moves to build himself up into a person who can win the show, despite not being a great, like a great, impressive, incredible athlete. I don't know.
Yeah. And dare I say the one season Leroy took risks, production screwed them in the final. But even with that, his risk didn't come. I'm talking World of Worlds too. His risk didn't come until he really just had to jump ship to that one alliance from that one red-haired girl. But there are people who I love seeing on the show. And I'm so sorry, Zoe. I love Nani and I want her on as many seasons as possible. But I do get tired of it's my season to win. I want to win, because it gets to a point where it's like I've heard, and Nani has only said that once in the first episode, and I got it. But like, I get so tired of hearing about these people who've not won, not winning. It's okay to acknowledge I'm a staple of this show, but I'm just not going to be a champ. And I'm thinking Aneesa, I'm thinking Leroy. I'm thinking my beloved Amanda, but I don't know. I'm going to be quiet because I feel like I'm being just a hater right now.
No, you're good. Hey, let the hate flow through you.
Being objective.
Yeah.
I think you said you like someone and that you don't like this part of them.
Yeah.
I do want to give Leroy credit because I was really impressed on Double Agents, like as like his best season ever, because he showed so much improvement on that season when it came to swimming and when it came to puzzles and memory games, and he was showing like that he actually practiced, and that's why I was frustrated on All Stars 4 when he came in and was just flopping on all these daily challenges, and all this progress he made just seemingly was out the window. And now this season, it's like, that puzzle with him and Devin. He's like, no, I've been practicing puzzles. Let me actually help on this puzzle, Devin, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate this team on this season just because the season feels so tailor-made for them as like one of the only two male duos. They don't have, Adam and Steve have taken the biggest target. The season feels so set up for a Leroy and Devin win. All the while I'm watching them, and they're a strong team, but they don't feel like a super dominant team either. And it's like, it was like watching the Chiefs in the regular season this past year, where like, yes, they're 15-2, yes, they're winning every game, but there's something about them that I'm like, this is not an elite team.
Well, you're saying that with the now hindsight of what happened in the Super Bowl too. With the Super Bowl, obviously the Super Bowl went a very clear direction, but if it goes in a different direction, then what are you saying, Allan?
No, I'm saying even if the Chiefs had won this, because the Chiefs, they won every game this season, where like they didn't even score that many points. They just kept winning by one score in like these like rinky-dink ways. I feel like if Devin and Leroy win the season, that would be the world we live in. Like we would have lived in if the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Where I'm not even going to be like walk away that super impressed. Just I'm like, yeah, but it's like they are very good, but there's just something missing. It doesn't feel like I'm watching like Wes and CT on Rivals 2.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I don't watch football, so I can't acknowledge the comparison. But in a way, if this comparison's right, I have no way of knowing. I do kind of love that they don't seem like two elite competitors, because that would make me even more furious. I still think they stand out above most.
The male team thing is just not fair. Mark my words.
It's not. Congrats to Fessy and Amber for coming in second. They were the only other team to get to the puzzle section, but I don't even think it wasn't even their fault. It was just like Devin and Leroy was so far ahead.
Wingspan.
Yeah. And works to their benefit not to win 2 dailies in a row. So.
Yeah, I think Turbo and Nani also did pretty well in this daily based on what I've seen. And Adam and Steve were doing okay. Again, Adam was literally dying. Melissa and Nicole did all right. And I was decently impressed by KellyAnne and Sylvia because they were working together as a team and they were like supporting each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Leroy and Devin have the win. We're gonna go back to the house and we get more Aneesa content. And we talked about this early. We talked about this a bit earlier before. People are once again training throughout the house, and Aneesa gets, she's just like, oh, I might go on the elliptical bike while you guys are working out, um, or I might just stay on the couch all day. And production kind of does Aneesa. I don't want to say dirty. They just actually showed Aneesa what she was doing, and that was laying on the couch saying like, yeah, as we mentioned before, like I like to train hard before the season, but once the season gets going, I just like to play the social game.
And that's okay. And that's okay. You know what? That's okay.
It's not okay for Ashley because we see Ashley in the kitchen, who like Ashley's in some workout gear, and she's like, all she does is lay on the couch. She hasn't done any training. She hasn't done shit this entire house. Like she just wants to play the social game and come in fourth in the final. I don't come on the show to come in fourth in the final. I come here to win. I'd rather go home first than because I'm a threat than like be a layup.
And she's done it many times. And yes, I get Aneesa's game from her viewpoint. From her viewpoint, I get it. It's not how I play a game. I get it. She's found success doing it. She's found like thousands of dollars being cast doing this season by season. But I just am disheartened for not only Ashley, but so many people here who clearly have a partner, rest in peace, John A. and Beth, like who clearly have a partner who does not want to be there to win. And, we can say all day long they might not have known they had a partner. I'm obviously too invested. They actually had wind that it was going to be a rival season beforehand. And I get that check is all that matters. They don't care about if they compete well or not, if they know they're not going to win. But it's frustrating to have Ashley's return after her hiatus be with Aneesa. And like not even an Aneesa who sees I have a really good partner. Maybe I should ask her to work out with me. Maybe I should like talk game with her. And perhaps we're not seeing that. But like there's also a reason we're not seeing that. It's so frustrating.
It's like particularly annoying because Ashley and Frank are the people that are screwed by this the most, right? Like their partners are clearly dragging them down. And they're two people who have clashed with so many people. So they had options for rivals for them. And they just decided to anchor them to these people. And it's frustrating to watch.
It's frustrating too. Not that Turbo's not a great competitor. I mean, he's a lunatic. But Frank has said many times on Instagram and even Twitter, like when he left for this, his one hope that he could work with Nany because he felt like he could be the one person that would work really well with her. And I believe it too. And they have real beef. Like
Luke.
Way more interesting.
For 6 years, anytime I've done my Rivals Fantasy Cast, I've done Ashley and Nany. Because they've had real beef for multiple seasons. Like it's
yeah. I think although their last season they did together, they worked very closely together. But clearly there were no real parameters.
Nany, Amanda kind of bridged them, and then once Ashley got kicked off, Nany was a little bit shady, and
I'm going to be the first to say Nany was not shady because Nany was the first person to like go on podcast and go to Challenge Mania Lives and Twitter and say Ashley did not say what people said she said.
Oh,
so
okay.
I will give her credit for that.
Okay.
But since then, yes, she has been shady about things she said, but not about the situation. So yes, but I do want to clarify. Nany, after that situation on Spies, Lies, and Allies, said what is being purported is not true.
Okay.
But again, there are no guidelines. It would have been a great thing.
Yeah. Ashley would make her complaints. And I get Aneesa, she frustrates me so much because this is like once you are in the challenge house, it's your job. Like it's kind of your job. So like you have like we talked about CT earlier. CT went on War of the Worlds 2. He came on that season in terrible shape. By the end of that season, he had dropped 30 pounds at least. Like if you look at the before and after of like him from day one to the final, he dropped a ton of weight. Every season CT comes on, he gets in much better shape throughout the season because he knows like, all right, I'm in this house. There's not really much to do other than to talk to people, do the daily challenge, and work out. So that's what he does. Aneesa, you could work out and then talk to people. Like just because you work out, it just takes up an hour of your day?
She could literally just walk.
You could also just talk to people in the gym too. Just have, be on the treadmill, just be talking to people.
I'm over it.
You guys are Aneesa'd out.
For now, we've got more to say later.
Sit out.
Well, let's move on to some good things, and that is KellyAnne and Sylvia. We talked about them at the beginning of the episode, at the end of last week. These two reconciled, and they actually they had a really cute bonding moment where they talked about like what they were frustrated about, why they don't like each other and stuff like that as like actual adults. And compared to last week's episode where I thought, man, these two are never going to get on the same page. Fast forward, they got on the same page.
It was a really mature conversation. Like, I had my teacher hat on in moments and was like criticizing sometimes the way they were apologizing and like not taking full ownership, but saying like, you did X to me instead of just being like, I did this. But all things considered, these are unhinged reality TV characters, and I thought it was a really good, productive conversation. I was really proud of both of them.
And typically not what I want to see on TV, but it was nice to see that reconciliation with, like Zoe said, they still had their ego that inserted itself at times, which is why there are people who've been on multiple of these seasons. But like, I also don't want to see people be that at odds an entire season. And I think it speaks that the argument last week was just not that deep. Like to them, I'm not saying it's not to others, but to them, it just wasn't that deep. They were clearly trying to hurt one another. And I even appreciated that Sylvia said that, and KellyAnne was egoless and said, I did too, because I'm very envious of like what I see in you. Like that is KellyAnne's what she is, but that was a lot of character that was shown.
A lot of self-awareness, a lot of like introspection. I actually didn't know that they were capable, especially KellyAnne, of like that level of self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And to be that vulnerable to offer it up to the other person was huge. And while like we love to have our reality TV people arguing and creating chaos and disagreement and conflict, like I also love this side of reality TV, which is just like a real human moment. And I just like that this pair, who is so dynamic and so funny to me, gave us both in 2 episodes.
And there's a point too where like KellyAnne acknowledges like KellyAnne, like Sylvia, you're a really strong competitor. And we talked about different body shapes. Like KellyAnne and Sylvia are direct opposites in terms of like body shapes, but also like they're very similar competitors in that vein, where KellyAnne is a cardio beast, super scrappy, but she could get bowled over physically in a lot of just weight-based activities. Sylvia, people constantly throw jabs at her appearance because she's got shoulders and she's not a twig. But Sylvia is, from what we've seen, been able to run a final. She's been able to compete in high levels in like mini finals. She's won a lot of daily challenges. She's won headbangers. Like Sylvia's proven to be a good athlete.
She might have won a season.
But yeah, they'll say like Sylvia won Final Reckoning, and I love Ashley to death, but had Hunter and Ashley not thrown their grenade on them, and had Polly and Natalie not done that, even if just Polly and Natalie hadn't, Sylvia won Final Reckoning. I favor the outcome because of who I like, and I can admit that. But Sylvia's really good. And even her old seasons, her first season was a little messy with how she was like willing to go in and whatever, but she still won eliminations. We can't forget that her and Melissa had one of the best eliminations, I think, ever, that gets overshadowed sometimes from vendettas. Like, I think Sylvia's great. Sylvia played a great game in All-Stars 3. It just didn't pan out in the end. So, yeah, this is a team that although or specifically me, have been like, the man is bad. These are two women who really have like shown up.
Yeah, they both have like, they make up for each other's weaknesses. They make, Sylvia doesn't have the endurance that KellyAnne does, but KellyAnne doesn't have the size, and together they could really work together in a great way. And I think they're two of the best to never win. Seeing them as a pair like should be exciting. If I was a script writer, I would have had them bickering and feuding for another 4 more episodes and then reconciling like this. Knowing what we do now, I get why we didn't get that. But it was overall just like a great scene, and I really love these two women.
Same.
Let's move on to the house vote now. Adam is so damn sick. Like, it's like not even a joke. He's breathing out of the whole respirator mask and stuff like that. He goes to take a shower, and like after the daily challenge, his bed is just literally soaked from all the sweat. It's actually crazy when you think about it, how little we see players when they're like sick like this on the show and like get taken out.
I think of Frank on Free Agents, where he was killing the beginning of the game. I think of other contestants who have wanted to stay when they've been so sick and productions made them leave. Like,
Sylvia.
I mean, I would almost be worried to be in the same house as Adam, because like, to produce that much sweat and to be projectiling out of both ends of his body, like, so sorry, but like, we had to be exposed to it. Like, he's not just having a cold, like, he's actually sick.
I hate talking about people's bodily functions.
Sorry.
No, that's like, it's a me thing. It's a joke amongst all my friends. Like, just can't mention certain words in front of me because I'm just like, that's none of my business.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like doing this during parts of the episode, like la 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 la. But yeah, Adam is on his deathbed, which only makes it easier for people to want to vote him in, unfortunately.
Yeah, they go to it's the whole house vote, and Adam was like, begs, like, please, just give us this like 1 week off. You can take our star even. Just give us this week off, and like we'll really, like, I'm so sick. I'll really appreciate it. What's funny too is that if this happened on All Stars 1,
yeah,
everyone would have let Adam be safe, because there was a kumbaya aspect to that season. Like, oh, I'll volunteer for you. Oh, I'll step up for my friend here. All Stars 5, especially with these new Gen cast members on the show, they're like, your ass is going in.
Yeah, because even season 1, I believe it was, like, when somebody sent Kendall in, she had like an absolute meltdown because like she had asked that person not to think about this X Factor. People like, I didn't realize we're playing the game this way. And it's like, well, it's still a lot of money. Like, so yeah, I almost feel like, well, no, there was nothing that could have been done. They were getting thrown in regardless.
And you know what? It's making me root for Steven. Like, I hate the dual male pair aspect of it though, but I do like Steve and Adam as a team, just because they have the biggest heart. What?
I would like Steve and Adam as a team more if it was a bunch of female pairs and a bunch of male pairs. Like, I just can't root for the male pair, either one of them. I just can't do it because it doesn't feel fair, even with Adam on his deathbed.
Mm-hmm.
It's fair. Whole house votes for Adam and Steve, even their allies. Like everyone except for Veronica and Katie, who voted Corey and Big T, and Corey makes a whole big thing of it.
It's just the game. Like, that's not even give a thought. Okay, because it just.
Next.
I'm trying to be a cool comrade,
okay.
But like.
Yeah. We then get a scene though where Adam and Steve are talking to Leroy and Devin, and Adam is keyed in on Frank. Like, he's like, Frank is the head of the snake. He's the one running the house. Give me Frank and Sam in elimination. Like, that's who I want to face. Devin and Leroy is like, all right, we'll table that and we'll talk to a bunch of different teams. We're going to make sure that nobody feels safe. And I was expecting to watch them talk to a whole bunch of different teams. No, we just go directly to the elimination.
We talked to Frank.
Yeah.
But we get the vote after. We see it after. Like, I was expecting the whole like bouncing around to like Fessy and Amber, Dario, like just a whole like, what we're used to now, where we go to the club, but that's not the editing they're doing on this season.
Yeah.
We get to the arena. They vote in KellyAnne and Sylvia, which blindsides us fans.
Oh, God.
And then it makes the scenes between KellyAnne and Sylvia from earlier this episode and like last week make more sense now, of like why we're getting so much camera time with them. But then we get a scene after that where it's Frank and Sam talking to Devin and Leroy, And Frank just pitches the idea of Sylvia and KellyAnne as the team to go after. And Devin and Leroy just eat up the idea.
Well, and I think that they know that they're a bit insulated too, at least just with Ashley and Shane, who I can't believe we've not talked about Shane and Ava on this episode. They didn't do much, but like still love them. So I get it, but also a team that's like currently bickering with one another. I know they had their little makeup, but like it wasn't like house wide. I just didn't quite understand it. I didn't understand why they wouldn't want to throw in maybe a Nicole and Melissa.
Devin made a point of saying, like, you want to make sure the team you put in doesn't come back. And I'm like, who cares? Like, you're still one of the strongest teams. And you have enough connections in this house, you think, especially with your big ass egos, to keep you safe. I was like, Devin, you want to make a TV moment? Put Fessy and Amber in. Then one of the best teams is definitely going home.
And he could scream Big Brother sucks and self-produced. Like it could have been.
Exactly. I think I was just personally like biased and frustrated because I find KellyAnne and Sylvia to be one of the most entertaining teams here. And so I was really frustrated by the idea of losing them so early because they're genuine, interesting people.
Yeah.
From a TV perspective, I was screaming no. I was like Michael Scott, like no to my TV of like KellyAnne and Sylvia going in. Taking a step back, you have to take a shot at the Lavender Ladies early before they can really gather up and gain steam. Because when you go back and watch Final Reckoning, once they got to the middle of the game, their numbers were just so overwhelming, and like that's why it's smart to take a shot at KellyAnne and Sylvia early. And also, it's like Ashley and Aneesa, they're not beating you in the final. Shane and Davon are less of a threat than KellyAnne and Sylvia. They might be even, but like KellyAnne and Sylvia probably have more final. They have more final experience than Dave. Actually, Davon and Shane neither have been to a final.
And I'm going to give Aneesa credit. Like Leroy and Devin would both throw Ashley, and I'm sure of it, but Aneesa is keeping her safe. Like they are both close with Aneesa. I mean, Leroy is very close with Davon. So Sylvia and KellyAnne, I get it from their perspective.
I also think it's an absolute masterclass from Frank in terms of like manipulating and puppeteering this season. And I'm so interested to see where he goes from here, because if he continues to just like manipulate things from behind the scenes, I will be so frustrated for all the seasons we've had to go without him.
Yeah. Well, and I think even if people get keyed in onto it or keyed in, whatever I'm trying to say, they're still not going to want to throw them in because Sam is such a liability in a final. So you're right. This makes me want him and makes me retroactively want him.
I also think Frank was like, he could recognize what the threats to Lavender Ladies are as a unit, and that you're never going to be part of them. And even if you are, you're on the outside. You're the fourth, fifth member of that alliance, which makes some of the Shane confessionals from last week, or the first week, and then now this week, make more sense. Where he's like, Frank is shady. He's dangerous in this game because their two sides are off. They're very much on opposite sides of the house.
Well, and Frank is also showing people how to play this game that I think he genuinely likes Ashley. I think he probably genuinely likes KellyAnne and Sylvia both, but it's a game. And like to be able to separate that is a skill that a lot of people in the last few seasons have not been able to separate. Him
saying he genuinely does not give a fuck about anyone in the house was one of my favorite moments from the episode. Like, I just, what a character.
I completely forgot too the scene of him in the beginning of the episode telling KellyAnne, like, well, I need you here. I need you here for my sanity.
It's like a little sociopathic, right? But like it's a game, so it's not. Like he's just fully locked into playing this game, and I love it.
Yeah.
There's also just an aspect of him just like him being bored and just trying to fill time in the house. He's like, well, I've worked out 3 times today. So I don't really know what else to do. I was like, let me just lie. Let me just tell KellyAnne, like, I need you. Let's do this. Let's go through this game together. And then 5 seconds later, throw KellyAnne in.
Love it, but I hate it.
Elimination time. KellyAnne and Sylvia versus Adam and Steve. They have to solve a puzzle, and then after they solve a puzzle, they have to grab a bunch of rope and chains that have been falling to the floor progressively as they've been competing in the elimination, and then they have to hold it up for 5 minutes. The first team to hold it up for 5 minutes without dropping any of it wins the elimination. Not the worst elimination they've ever done. Definitely not the greatest.
I feel like reverse order would have been better, like accomplishing the thing and then doing the puzzle.
I thought the same thing because they lost so much momentum because it no longer relied on who's going to be done first because we knew is the chain going to touch the ground? And like we knew who won when the first person won the puzzle. There was always the chance of them dropping the chain, but I agree, Zoe. Like we're going to drop this entire chain and you're gonna have to maneuver it and then hold it for 5 minutes because there's room for error there. But even if they both had done it in 5 minutes, okay, now it's race to the puzzle. That like you're so right. That would have been perfect. I don't hate it. Like we've seen worse for sure, but they kind of killed the momentum.
I just think production needs to hire one of us because there's been so many dailies and eliminations that are like close. They're close to being good. And we workshop it here and it's so much better.
Well, and don't hire us to like actually make it because I can't do that. But just let me critique it. That's one thing that I'm good at.
I will edit it for you.
Sylvia and KellyAnne are a team with like both have experience be like upsetting people in eliminations. If there's ever been like a dual female team who could pull off the upset, it's probably them, especially them working together as well as they did in this elimination. Sylvia did pretty good on the puzzle. They were so supportive of one another. They actually killed this elimination. Problem is, Steve has seen this puzzle before and he said like, oh, I do this puzzle all the time on my phone app game. And he solved it really damn fast. And from there, it was just an easy win for them. So it sucks because Sylvia and KellyAnne just did well. Steve was just better. And I'm like, Adam, good job for sticking in there. I mean, like, this isn't even to dismiss Adam. It's just like Steve's like puzzle practice really came in handy here.
Yeah, and I think the writing's on the wall that they're going to, if they don't get sent home for his illness, but they're going to continue to be sent in against people because it's the easy thing now. And I'm okay with it.
Maybe. We'll get to it in a second, but it felt like in the preview for next week's episode, someone was hinting at maybe going a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Steve and Adam get the win. Steve now holds the record for the most elimination wins on the All-Star spinoff, so good for Steve. These eliminations haven't been like total blowouts either. So I think it does show that like they are susceptible to losing to anyone given how janky these eliminations can be.
Yeah.
And it sucks though because they just retain their star. They're not moving stars anywhere else. That could have been much more interesting.
At least to have the option, because again, if they're going to be made the scapegoat, give them a little bit of power, please. Like make these power teams at least have to think about putting them in over and over and over again.
Yeah.
We then move on from this, and it is Sylvia and KellyAnne doing their goodbyes where they go back and pack at the house. We're getting that all season, I guess, which I love. It's actually been a little great aspect. I did laugh at them showing a montage of all them fighting throughout the season, which included all of just episode 2. But they did the whole cute dual confessional together, which it's so funny thinking like, yeah, Beth and John A never would have done the dual confessional together, but KellyAnne and Sylvia, they're like, hey, we're best friends now, actually.
That was a lot for me, but I love the progress.
I thought it was cute. It was endearing. It was real. Like, it was like, this is very new for us. We're getting along. We're going to hug each other, but like, it's still definitely a little weird.
You're right. I'm going to go back on what I just said. I think it also shows that their problems were game-based, and that was it.
Yeah.
I also laughed at like Sylvia's like, oh, I called you a Chihuahua, and KellyAnne's like, oh, I called you a Doberman.
That reminds me, I want to know, I hope KellyAnne shares this with us at some point, who every contestant is in dog form, because I don't know enough about dogs, and this is where her expertise would really come in handy, because I like to play that game too, but usually it's just like, these are the characteristics, someone else give me the breed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna see right now if KellyAnne still follows me on Twitter, because if so, I'm gonna ask her, hey, could you give us what she does still follow us. So okay, maybe I'll DM her and ask, hey, could you give us the lowdown on what every dog, every competitor is? And
Yeah,
like
I
come
would.
on the podcast and just examine what dogs we are as humans.
Yeah, it could be a 20-minute podcast where we just talk about that.
Nothing else. You don't have to worry about any like we're not going to go through any of your history drama on the show. Also, congrats to both of them because they both gotten married. Like they both like we got weddings to plan. Sylvia had her wedding that was online, and what's it called? The Lavender Ladies all showed up, and Wes showed up, and they all had a great time. And then KellyAnne had a wedding that was going on like I think the week that season 40 debuted. I met her husband, handsome guy, good for him. So congrats to both of them.
Yeah.
And congrats to Aneesa for getting yet another segment on this podcast because the episode ends with just the way it ended last week, where it's a fight between Sylvia and KellyAnne. Now it's Ashley and Aneesa. Aneesa makes what's the joke she makes? What's the joke she makes? That
She's talking in a very southern accent, and she says, "And I can talk in this redneck voice because my partner's from West Virginia."
Ashley was not mad about what Aneesa said. Ashley was mad Aneesa's her partner. Yeah. Ashley was drunk and was sick of Aneesa's shit.
Completely. And I think I can take the resident, like, southern West Virginia, like, take here because I grew up 15 minutes from West Virginia, the most southern part of West Virginia, where people really are very, very southern, far more southern than sometimes people in southern states or more southern states. Redneck is not like offensive to people who live there. And we know this. And I love Ashley, but don't ever say that I just pander to people I like. Ashley used the terminology earlier in the accent or earlier in the episode saying like my redneck accent. She used it on Invasion when she said to Sylvia, like, when you hear my redneck accent, you know what to do. Okay. I do think it does piss you off when someone you doesn't like brings up a personality trait of yours or just something about you that is ingrained in who you are. But Zoe's so right. This has nothing to do with that. Because it was a lighthearted joke. I'll be the first to say it.
I also loved the callback to Real World, Ashley, where it wasn't quite I can buy and sell your family, but it was like I grew up in a 3-story house with this, and this. Like I love Ashley because she's just who she is always, and she's always gonna make good TV. I as soon as she started spouting off about this redneck chick, I was like, oh no, she's just pissed off because she knows she's gonna lose this game. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
guys,
and I'll go for it.
Ashley goes on her tirade, and I go, oh no, am I on Aneesa's side?
I'm not on Aneesa's side, but I will be the first to say Aneesa meant no harm by that.
She didn't do anything wrong.
I have been told, like in collegiate level classes, that like redneck is a word I should not use. It is not even charged in anything except for lifestyle choices that people around where I currently live. And I don't know anyone who's ever like been offended by that who actually is very southern. Like I have many friends who self-identify as redneck because they do fit.
It's just Ashley has played it up on so many different seasons, and like when I interviewed her, it's like she played it up too, and it's like it's a whole thing. It's like and then when she later in the fight, it's like Aneesa, I don't bring up your history, I don't bring up anything about your appearance, and I'm like that kind of is just doing the whole you're not saying it, but you are doing it.
I'm biased, but let me just say, it is one thing for you to say something about yourself, but like, I don't think anybody would disagree. Sometimes that's a mechanism to like, this is why I sound like this. This is why I'm the way that I am. But when somebody then says it back to you, it's like, whoa, I know that I was forthright with saying it. And it does open the door. I won't say that it doesn't, but like, I understand having slight frustration, but it could have been, Aneesa, like, I know that I joke, but like, I'm actually not redneck and let's not let's not make this a big thing. But she blew out of proportion. But I will stand by you. Like Ashley is right, and maybe I'm just like too much in headspace. But if Ashley had said to her like, "You don't work out, like you never come to these seasons prepared," yada yada yada, she'd be the bad guy, despite Aneesa saying it every season. But really, Ashley was drunk and making a bigger deal out of it than it needed to be.
Aneesa didn't do anything wrong. Ashley overreacted, but also just properly reacted to the frustration of having Aneesa for a partner. I think Aneesa showed genuine remorse and compassion, and I actually felt bad for her while she was crying to Ashley, being like, I didn't want to hurt you. Like, and because she really didn't do anything wrong. Like, she was joking around using Ashley's own terminology that is part of her brand and her identity that she's brought to this show. I think Ashley just needed to get some feelings off of her chest, and this was a way for her to make an excuse to do that.
And I'll second that. Aneesa was so genuine with her apology. She did roll her eyes when Ashley had a reaction, but again, Ashley had a reaction that, I mean, she was apologizing. It should have been done, but it was clear Ashley was a bit of a smashy at that moment. And that's not me giving her grace there. Like, I think when Ashley gets to watch it, she's going to be like, I hate Aneesa, but like, it wasn't that big of a deal. So look, Aneesa, you have our support.
Aneesa has my support this scene because like once Ashley started talking about like living on a hilltop house driving 15 cars, I was like, I don't know.
We're gonna have to disagree, which is great. But like,
that's fine.
I do think like if somebody called me a redneck, I would be upset by it. Despite there have been many times I've said like, oh, I have a redneck accent, or like I'm from a redneck, blah blah blah. Like, I get there's a defensiveness, and I'm not saying Aneesa was wrong with it. So like, I hope like that makes sense. I'm just saying like, it's one thing to joke about yourself, but when somebody else says it back, it's like, well, like that feels different.
Yeah. And when Ashley was complaining about Aneesa not training in the house, I'm completely on her side. Like, she's not trying these daily challenges. She, like she's not working in the house. But when you like just go in on Aneesa with your frustrations, you're kind of making it a self-fulfilling prophecy of why your pair is going to fail. It's like you're like, it's already going to happen, but it feels like you're willing it and you kind of want it to happen at a certain point.
They'll like, mark my words, they're going to go in soon. And Ashley shouldn't have reacted how she did.
You know who pissed me off the most in this scene? Fessy. I actually got genuinely annoyed with Fessy because Ashley was sitting there venting, and his confessional of like, Ashley and Aneesa are a really strong team. I was like, fuck you, motherfucker, you're lying. Like, I was like, you who did everything you could to get like separated from Aneesa on Double Agents, who were just dying to cut the cord there. Like, do not look Ashley in the face and tell her that they are a strong team. You are lying through your teeth. I was like, I got actually heated just watching him say that, because I was like, he's just saying words into a camera. There is no meaning behind them.
Great point, Zoe. And Luke, you brought up them going into elimination soon. Based on what we saw last week, the team that fought to end the episode, they kind of went to elimination the next episode. If that's the case every week going on, like from here on out, it might annoy me. Because like then they're just telling us, and I'm like, okay, don't be too on the nose about it. I need to see a fight between. My hope is that this fight does not end up in them being an elimination next week. But if it does, then the season might be a little bit too on the nose.
I hope there's reconciliation next episode. Now, seeing things that Ashley said postseason about Aneesa, I don't foresee it. And even those, like by side, I'm like, Ashley, shut up. I hope next week they don't go in. I hope next week they win the daily.
In my head, I was just like, okay, they wouldn't pair Ashley with Aneesa again on a rival season. So like, she can continue to hate her if she wants to. But then I was like, maybe they would. Possible.
Well, yet another week where we've talked about this episode for longer than the episode went. So that's a sign of a pretty good episode. Look, season 40, there were some weeks there that were real rough for us. So I feel like we're on a good path. There's a lot of problems we obviously have we're complaining about, but it's like there's stuff we care about on the show, and we're going to talk about it. Hopefully next week's even better, and the fat's getting trimmed one by one. I do wish KellyAnne and Sylvia were still here, but you know what? Things are still moving in a good direction.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you get the podcast. Have a great weekend, everyone. Also, there's an interview with KellyAnne that will event. We recorded it weeks ago at this point. I was supposed to post it this past Monday. I just got busy. Hopefully next Monday. Hopefully I don't get busy again. I've just been going through a lot, but it'll be up here eventually. And then I'll reach out to KellyAnne about the dogs. Bye, everyone.